What's up guys, Nick the Informative Fisherman here, back with another Tinker Tuesday. This one is going to be extremely useful for you guys. Line twist. I have heard so many different little rumors or way people suggest to spool up, and I think it's just because there's just so many videos out there from people's experiences. But I'll tell you something, I spool up probably once or twice a week. I do so many different types of fishing. I fish every day. And I'm going to tell you what I ran into, how to fix these things. Now, right away, when I say line twist on a spinning setup, like right here I have on my finesse stick, spinning reel. All right, this is beyond what you've ever heard before. I'm going to tell you stuff which I seriously doubt you've ever heard. So right off the bat, people tell you the line twist comes from spooling. Either you had your spool on the wrong side or this. Doesn't matter what side they put the label on. People talk about putting your spool in a box and creating tension and making sure it's coming off the top of the spool. Yeah, a lot of the time that's correct. The easiest freaking way to make sure your line goes on right is to have a little bit of tension and it comes off the spool correctly. The easiest way to do this, the brainless way to do this, is grab a bucket, 5-gallon bucket, put this much water on the bottom, put some line off of here, tie it onto your spool, drop this spool of line into the water and reel it onto your spool. The water will naturally create enough retention to where it's just the right amount of pressure to spool that line on. Now, I'll tell you right away, I never use a whole spool of fluorocarbon to spool up with. 50% of the line on the base of my spool right here is braid. I use just light braid, 20 pound, 15 pound, whatever you want, just light braid. Therefore, the outer 50%, the working line is fluorocarbon. The reason I do this is if I want to replace my line every few months, I fish every day. You don't need to do it that often. You could probably get away with a year. All right. I'm only replacing 50% of that line. So now here's what the why I'm saying this is everybody's going to tell you just use braid with a fluorocarbon leader. I hate using leaders. In my head, I just feel like it's a failure point. I used to do that. Sometimes I will if I'm fishing ultra deep in these Northern California lakes, dragging a bait just for that extra sensitivity, but I use the P-Line Tactical Fluorocarbon sensitive stuff anyways. So when I'm spooling up 50% of my braid, I tie a double uni knot. You can tie any leader to leader knot you want. Drop this in a bucket of water, spool up. Now, so you've done that step right. So you're positive your line is on your reel correctly. Now you're out there fishing and you randomly see, you cast and your line's getting wrapped around the tip of your rod, or you see some line like twisted off the side of your reel. All that means is you stacked tight line on loose line, which means you either started reeling, the spool was open, you started reeling to close it, you threw slack in there, and then all of a sudden you created tension on your line and you stacked tight line on top of loose line. That's where that little twist comes in. Or you cast it out there, you had slack, you closed it, and you just started reeling up slack. Slack line never goes onto a spool correctly, and what happens is you end up stacking tension on top of slack. That's where you get a lot of line twists right there too. Excuse me. Now, so you can either pick up on the rod to create tension, close it with your hand. What you can see in a lot of my videos is after I cast, you'll see that I kind of just indiscreetly pull right there as I start. That prevents a ton of line twists doing it like that. Now, let's say you get that little twist of line coming off the side of your spool. Don't open your spool. Lots of line can jump off like that. Loosen it all the way and drop your bait in the water, then pull it off. Pull it out like that. You're creating a little bit of tension, okay, to get that slack out. Once you get that little slack line twist out, tighten it back up, put it between your fingers and reel it back onto the reel like so. You can get that out of there. Now you cast your bait back out if you have a bait that's not suspended. So if you have a drop shot, that can be causing line twists, and I'll go over how to cover that with you. Like a shaky head or a Ned rig, you're getting line twists. It's typically because you either spooled up wrong or you're reeling in slack line. You're not noticing. There's another little secret right here that can cause line twists. If your drag is too tight, this is 6-pound test. We're just going to use 6 pound as an example. If your drag's too tight, the fish has to stretch your line to pull drag, or you're reeling and pulling too hard. Therefore, you're stretching the line and then putting it back on the spools to where your line's under tension. Therefore, you're stretching it and creating line twists under tension. A little bit of tension, like I said, when you put it on your spools, great. But if you're going over that 6-pound point, you're stretching it. So probably right around on 6-pound line, it's probably, I don't know, 5.5 pounds of pressure where it starts to stretch. You'll notice too, if you caught big fish on a Ned rig, a shaky head, something that's not a drop shot, and you're getting line twists, you know you had that slack out of your line, you know you manually closed your bail. What happened is you're probably pulling too hard and your drag set a little bit tight. Drop your bait in the water, long line it, reel it back in. If it continues, cut your bait off, long line out the side of the boat, put your line in the water, drive the boat or walk down the bank. Let all that line off your spool, reel it back up. That'll fix it, then back off your drag a little bit at that point. That should take care of that line twist for you. Now, there's another thing that can occur, and that's line twist with a drop shot. And the reason why is your bait is suspended up above your weight. So if you're reeling in a lot, your bait can do this, all right? It's twisting around. If your worm's not perfectly straight, don't ever worry about the perfect alignment with your worm. That is not the issue. What happens is with a drop shot is your bait's spinning. One way to combat that is to take your drop shot weight, like so, and put a little bend in it. Oftentimes that helps the drop shot weight ride smoother, and it takes a little bit of that twisting action out of your worm. But with a drop shot, you do want to be cautious, have that bent weight right there. Occasionally, if you're starting to see line twists, take your worm or your plastic off, bomb it out 2 times, reel it back in, and that oftentimes will remove the line twist by not jacking up your whole rig. Just take your plastic off, cast it back out, reel it back in. Those little tips right there, guys, should eliminate line twists for you. If you're having a problem, it could just be bad line and it might be time to respool. I'm Nick the Informative Fisherman. Make sure to follow me on all the popular social media channels. See you next time.